Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. Well, I'm not very excited to start today's show because it's such a terrible story. It happened not too long after you got done listening to the James Show yesterday. This airplane that crashed into a helicopter. Terrible that there's absolutely no survivors, but man, I have all kinds of questions and few answers. And I feel like even now, it's only been, 12 something hours since it happened. Shouldn't we already know more? Well, I don't know. So let's ask an aviation consultant. Ken Jenkins is kicking off the James Show today. Terrible circumstances under which you're joining the show today, but your expertise is needed. Has there ever been an airplane that's crashed into a helicopter?
Not that I'm aware of. And certainly this is the worst accident that we've seen since 2001 with the number of fatalities. And, it's been almost, my goodness, 24 years.
Wait, what was that? What was the 2001?
2001 accident was American Airlines Flight 587 in New York. A few months right after September 11th.
I remember that. Just like taking off from JFK and got hit with some wind or something.
That's right.
So I'm going to ask some obvious questions. What happened here? Is there any way this could be intentional, or is it just really terrible incompetence?
At this point, it looks like it was a terrible tragedy, obviously a terrible tragedy and an accident. The NTSB is holding a briefing even as we speak now, and they're talking about this is their first full day on scene. And their estimate of time for preliminary finding is 30 days. So I think we'll start to see more information over the next 30 days. As much as we'd like to have it now, it's going to take some time to determine what happened and how it happened.
Well, the NTSB is they're doing a press conference right now. They say that there's no evidence of mechanical failures. And, we have the radio recordings. It didn't seem like anything was going wrong on either side. Did we get any signal from either the helicopter or the plane that something was wrong before this happened?
Not that I've heard. However, what we've heard are tapes of the air traffic controllers. We haven't heard from the flight deck recorder or the cockpit voice recorder, and those certainly will be examined and definitely listened to as to any clues as to what might have happened in terms of the communication process between the tower and the aircraft.
Well, Ken Jenkins, you're an aviation consultant. I'm just a radio host, but I've been looking at the video, the overhead view of the flight path patterns. I'm a layman, I'll admit, but it looks like the helicopter was intentionally getting into the path of the plane.
Well, and and I'm not going to speculate. I mean, I've seen the same video you have, and that's what I interpret. However, we don't know what was happening at the time, what was being said between air traffic controller and the helicopter, and then between the plane and the ATC. So I'm going to step back and let the NTSB do their job and then determine what caused this. What's happening right now that I think is also very important to look at is how the families are being talked about and being taken care of by the airline and the NTSB and information. The NTSB over the next few weeks will be providing briefings to the families every day about what happens at the accident site, and then those briefings will then take place with the media afterwards. So we'll start seeing updates pretty frequently here coming in the next few days.
Well, wouldn't we know that if some rules were broken, I'm familiar with, I'm sure this isn't normal knowledge, but the upside down wedding cake system that they have to make sure that some of these collisions don't happen. Do we know if someone broke the rules about airspace?
And that's what's being examined now, and we don't know that.
Oh, you haven't been able to look at...
What we're hearing right now is everything seemed pretty normal in terms of operations, but obviously something abnormal took place. So what is that and what caused that? That's what's going to be examined.
What are the rules about flying in flight paths like that? Do military helicopters get an exception that the rest of us don't have to follow or something?
You're beyond my area of expertise for that. I'm more on the humanitarian side of the response. So I know just enough to be dangerous in terms of the accident aspect, more on how people are taken care of once the event occurs and what happens after that, post that.
So we have no survivors here. That's not a shock. Were they expecting maybe a miracle survivor in a situation like this, or was it pretty hopeless from the get-go?
There's always hope that there will be survivors. I think it was probably known for those that were responding on scene very quickly that there weren't going to be any survivors. Now the process of what happens now is the bodies being recovered from the Disaster Mortuary Operations Response Team, and then those loved ones being identified and then repatriated to their loved ones for burial. And that process can take days and weeks depending on the condition of the bodies.
Oh my, I would not like to have that job, Ken Jenkins.
Neither would I, sir.
Someone's got to do it, though. You can't just let them sit out there in the swamp or whatever. Well, this is terrible stuff. On what timetable? You expect about 30 days we'll have some answers?
Well, the NTSB had said in their preliminary briefing in the first few minutes that I heard that they anticipate preliminary report at 30 days, and then a complete. They didn't give a final deadline for when the complete report would be. Would be completed, but they expected a preliminary report in 30 days.
They haven't recovered the black boxes yet. Do they have like a transponder on them or something?
They do. However, I don't think there's a problem with the aircraft broke into three pieces, and I haven't heard anything about their not being able to find the black boxes, so that might be covered in their briefing today.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ken Jenkins. I appreciate your expertise on this.
You're welcome, sir. Nice speaking with you.
Thank you. Man, some of the people on the plane, they were showing some videos of one of the girls in her ice skating routine just a couple weeks ago. She's in her 20s. Didn't think she was going on her last trip there, did she? Some real sobering stuff. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Now, I'm going to ask you, without getting political, can we just start asking some basic questions here? Because what I saw, it looked intentional. If you were flying the helicopter and you're like, I'm going to try and hit this plane, that's exactly what you would do. Now, I don't know anything. I've only ridden in a helicopter twice. I don't even know what all the little gadgets are called. But it's either that or just an incredible level of human error. Even if this is like a training mission and you're a trainee, wouldn't you keep them? This doesn't seem right. This seems like something that in 50 years or something, when I'm all gray-headed in hospice, they're going to be like, hey, the new president's going to make public the files from the crash. But it just seems so wild because you have never seen in your life a helicopter and an airplane crash in the air like this. This has never happened before. And also, does this make you a little bit more nervous about flying? Because it certainly looked preventable. All right, let's talk about it. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If I sound a little uneasy today, it's because I have some cognitive dissonance going in my head. Yeah, I'm told that this is incompetence, the first airplane helicopter crash in the history of aviation that I'm aware of. That's according to my first guest, who's literally an aviation expert, Ken Jenkins. But I was trying to look that up when this happened last night. I was like, I don't think I've ever covered one of these before. And granted, that's, an anecdotal experience, but I couldn't find one. So it was confirmed in the first segment. And that makes it even worse. This is why I have cognitive dissonance in my head. There's no way that was an accident. You telling me that was an accident? Because the flight paths, the video, the rare nature, just the astronomical odds that this could ever happen in the first place, the rules that are in place about, hey, man, why don't you not fly your helicopter where planes are taking off and landing? Like they didn't have that rule already in place. Of course they did. So this stretches credulity. This is like the farthest fringe of my cognitive dissonance, because this looked intentional. This looked deliberate. If you were a guy that was trying to take out an airplane with your helicopter, you wouldn't have flown one thing different. But I also, if you can hear it, I'm very unsure, because I know right between Jack and squat about aviation. 800-288-9227. Let's try and get some help from some of these callers here. And y'all must be good, because Garrett doesn't usually put people through this easy. Y'all must be a bunch of good callers. Howard in the Colony. Help me out here. What do you know I don't?
Okay, well, I'm going to help you out here. A couple of things. I worked on the medevac crew up in Washington State.
Slow down. You talk really fast. Are you a Yankee or something?
No, I'm a Texan.
Okay, well, you're just excited. Slow down.
It's okay. Yes, sir. I was part of a medevac crew back in the 80s in Washington State. I trained some of the crew in the back on the night vision goggles. So when you're talking about wearing night vision and that kind of thing, I do have some expertise there.
Cool.
But we flew with a lot of civilian traffic because we were flying civilian patients up in Seattle, and there's a lot of traffic out of that SeaTac airport. And I can tell you, the planes, we are sitting ducks for those planes. They're coming in, they're on approach. They have nav aids that we don't have. Now, like I said, I was in a Huey, not a Black Hawk. But a couple of things. One of them, from what I understand, they only had 3 people in the Black Hawk.
Is that standard, or is that too few?
That's too few, because normally you have 4 in the back, or 2 in the back, a crew of 4. So the 2 in the back, one will clear the right side of the aircraft and the other the left.
Well, see, Howard, this is things I need to know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
What they need 4 dudes? They only need 2 guys to run Airwolf. What do you need 4 guys for?
A helicopter is a little different because when you're landing in confined spaces, the pilots cannot see behind them.
Oh, okay. Yes. No,
they need to have the eyes.
Keep going. Teach me more, Howard. What else?
I'm going to teach you more. The other thing is, if they were wearing their night vision goggles, that's like looking through 2 toilet paper tubes on each eye. You have very little peripheral vision. Number one. Number 2 is they strap into the visor part of your helmet, so it's almost like wearing a ball cap that's pulled down onto your eyebrows, so you can't see up. Okay, if the plane is descending and the plane has a windshield that's up high, planes normally don't see down very well, and helicopters don't see up, especially with those night vision goggles on. So once that plane made the turn to correct the runway, it probably got busy in that cockpit of the American Airlines plane, and they were probably trying to capture the glide slope. And when they're in there and they're busy and they're making that turn, the helicopter probably never saw them coming. I mean, it was because they couldn't see. And if the crew member was on the other side of the aircraft, he probably never saw it.
Okay, so basic question here. Again, I know this probably sounds stupid to you, but a lot of people are thinking it. They don't have, like you see on the TV, a radar with like the dot that's coming at you like beep, 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 and it's getting closer and closer, and you're like, hey, maybe we should scoot out of the way?
Well, I was in a Huey, so we definitely didn't have that.
What?
But I can tell you the military aircraft, if it was equipped with a TCAS system, and I don't know if you discussed that yet.
I don't know what that is.
A TCAS, what it does is it detects traffic around you. Military helicopters, if they had that, they would probably have it off. They would probably very rarely use it because they fly in close formations. So you don't want that going off in your helmet every 15 seconds because you have somebody flying beside you.
All right, real quick, Howard, what are the rules about flying around a plane's flight path? You know, they have these flight paths registered.
Correct, they do. And the air traffic controller is responsible for, obviously, the traffic. But when a plane is capturing the glide slope, it should have been the controller's responsibility, in my opinion, to make sure those aircraft are clear.
That's exactly my next question. What culpability does the air traffic controller play in this?
Well, from my understanding, they were also on 2 different frequencies because they had one on the VHF military frequency. And I don't know if the air traffic controller had actually switched to that frequency to say, watch for the American Airlines flight, because they said that the military helicopter had never responded back to the tower. So I think when he's probably saw it, he may have transmitted on the wrong frequency. Now, that's my opinion, complete speculation. Okay. I don't know for sure. But, flying up in the Seattle area, we've been up there before flying patients into Harborview, and we've had an aircraft come down on us before where we saw the wingtip light, and we didn't realize it. The plane didn't realize it, but it went over the top of us, probably about 400 or 500 feet, but it was close enough to where we had to file a near miss.
All right. Howard, I appreciate your expertise. Yeah. I'm going to talk to some more experts. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Good day.
Right, good stuff. Jay, Mineral Wells, you know more about this than I do, I imagine. Help me out.
Well, it's Reagan's a very difficult airport. Not very difficult, but getting in and out you have to pay attention. The thing that stood out to me is the American Airlines airplane, the Eagle airplane, regional jet, was originally on an approach apparently to runway 119, that's north-south, and runway 33 points, obviously 330 degrees, so about 30 degrees off north. So the winds were probably from the north. So when he was on final for his approach into 1, the controller asked him to circle to land on runway 33 so they could get more traffic into land. So you go from a stabilized approach to now you got to turn out and you got to acquire the runway 33. You got to reconfigure your nav equipment to put the approach to 33 in. So they are really busy. And the runway is very short. So, while bigger airplanes can land there, it's a tedious approach. These guys are concentrating on, are we going to be able to land? Are we light enough that we can stop? We got to get this programmed in. They're doing all these things at a low altitude. And so rather than saying no, they accepted the clearance and started turning to the right and then getting aligned on runway 33. The helicopter is flying, as I understand it, VFR, visual flight rules.
I don't know what that means.
Visual flight rules means he's not relying on his instruments to fly.
Okay. Thank you.
That's visual flight rules. And so he was at a very low altitude. The contact happened at about 300 feet. So he's flying very low altitude and flying down what appears to be the river, which would be very common that they would fly down the river at low altitude, not expecting to have any traffic because they expected the traffic to be on approach to runway 1. They weren't expecting an aircraft to be on approach to runway 33 because that wasn't the primary runway that they were having traffic to.
So this runway 33 looks a lot shorter.
It is. It's very short. So these guys are trying to determine, can we land? Apparently they thought they were light enough that they could land and stop on it, but it's still short. So you got to get. It's a lot different than landing on a long runway. You got some room for error.
All right, Jay, I'm out of time for this segment. Real quick, I'm not saying you got to blame somebody, but is this the air traffic controller's fault? Is this the pilot's fault? Who deserves most of the blame?
At this point, I got to say the air traffic controller because you got to give some heads up for traffic that for everybody to look and make sure they can clear.
Noted. All right, Jay, I got to run, bud. Thank you very much. That's Jay in Mineral Wells. 2 great calls to start off with this terrible story, but this is what we need. We need some expertise. We have a hive mind. There's tens of thousands of people listening, and some of y'all know more than the rest of us about this stuff. So thank you very much for your help. If you want to jump in, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, special guest Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, who's going to talk about what's going on here in Texas with politics, and we will continue with the plane crash in D.C. coming up on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, we're not having a whole lot of fun today, but we're not supposed to at a time like this. This is the first time in your life you've seen a airplane run into a helicopter in the middle of the sky. That's bizarre. And just on that alone, it's suspicious. So far, we're being told no foul play is suspected, and this is all very preliminary. We're not even 24 hours into this. This just happened last night. But we'll have more fun tomorrow. I'll be at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. It'll be in a nice setting. People around me will be day drinking. We're going to have Jarrett from Bowling for Soup on. In fact, Lauren sent me a tweet on the break there. She says, not related to the plane crash, but I'm excited to hear about Bowling for Soup. Their drummer was my neighbor when I bought my first house. Oh, yeah. All they've been doing since then is just killing it all over the place. But this is one of the rare times when you tell me what's going on. So many other these topics that we do, I say, well, I've been doing radio for 22 years and I've been studying this, and let me tell you what's really going on. This one, I don't know. This is beyond my scope of expertise. Sylvia in Garland, what do you think's going on?
Well, I was listening to the Bongino show before you, and I also watched Fox News. Now, on Fox News earlier, before I heard later on Bongino, an Army pilot talking about this training flight, the actual things that they put on the screen was, okay, the CRJ in this is the airliner. Pat 25 is the helicopter. It says, to the CRJ, the air traffic controller, can you take runway 33? Yeah, we can do 33. Runway 33 clear to land. Do you have the CRJ in sight? They asked the helicopter. Pat 25 responds, yes, has aircraft, requests visual separation. They don't get the visual separation. The next thing they get is Pat 25 passed behind the CRJ. Then the air traffic controller says, "Did you see that?" Which maybe is a reference to the flash of the crash. Now, your person calling from Mineral Wells about the night vision goggle has already explained how hard it is to differentiate things. You know, we're used to FAA having the blinking green is on the right-hand side of the craft and the blinking red is on the left hand, and that's how you can tell whether a craft is coming towards you or going away from you.
Yeah, like in boats.
And, there was an aircraft leaving the area right where that helicopter was, as well as this one that the controller turned into the helicopter's path. The Army pilot on Bongino's show said this is a common route traveled. Their ceiling is 200 feet. So why the collision occurred up at 300 to 400 feet is going to be a question to come up. Why the air traffic controller didn't ask the helicopter to check their altitude is going to be a question to come up. But she said, as a pilot in a Black Hawk, that a gust of wind can pop you up 100 feet like a little bump in the road to a car. It's no big deal to bump you up. Like your Mineral Wells caller said, they air traffic control turned that aircraft, that airliner, into the Army helicopter pilot's flight path down the river, which was a routine training. This particular one was a night vision training recertification. So everyone in there was familiar with this. This was something they do, but they were low enough to the ground. They most likely would have had their anti-collision turned down or turned off because they would be getting all kinds of squawks from ground clutter. Now, there was another call into Bongino's show of a guy from San Diego who said he personally had to do the body cleanup after, in the 1970s, a helicopter and an airplane collided midair over a neighborhood and rained down debris on all of the houses in the neighborhood. So this has happened before. It's just not very common because usually the helicopters are flying low. And so I really do believe your guy from Mineral Wells had it pegged that when they redirected that plane from runway 1 to runway 3, they put it seconds closer to the helicopter. And the helicopter, the Army pilot that talked to Bongino, she said that plane would have been coming down from above him, and he may have had a visual on the plane that had just taken off and thought that was the plane they were telling him to get behind.
Okay, so
without knowing this other one is coming in on top of him.
Sylvia, you did a good job. You could be a reporter because she's weaving together info. 5 points because she weaved together info from Fox News, the TV broadcast, with Bongino, with my caller from Mineral Wells in the second segment. So she's kind of weaving this together like just a loom from 3 different shows here and stretched it into one beautiful narrative. Well done, Sylvia. Maybe you can fill in for me next time I'm out. All right, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Simple Minds is on tour. They're going to be here at the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory in Irvine June 1st. It's one of the concerts we have a contest for. Text the word ALIVE to 800-288-9227. It'll be Simple Minds, Soft Cell, and Modern English. Text the word ALIVE to 800-288-9227. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to another aviation expert, Jay Ratliff, on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, not a very exciting day today. We're dealing with a horrible tragedy here, and it gets worse. Sometimes I feel like I damage my brain sitting here in front of the news for 3 straight hours, and a couple hours worth of prep beforehand. I'm just watching the cable news channels. They keep now flashing up pictures of the victims, and they're young, and they're like 20, and they're in great shape, and they all look happy, and they're really accomplished, and have their whole lives in front of them, and boom, it's just gone. It's just gone because someone either made a mistake. I mean, it kind of looks intentional to me, but I can admit that I don't know anything about this. That's what it looks like to the layman who has to observe this. And, like if I died, be sad, but don't be that sad. I got to, fall in love and get married and start a family and raise kids, and they're not all raised yet. But, I got to go through most of life's experiences. These people that died in their 20s, just everything was taken from them. So what do we know about the crash? Let's talk to an aviation expert. Jay Ratliff's on the James Show. Now, Jay, first things first, talk me out of believing this was intentional.
Yeah, it was not. I mean, anytime we have an accident, the FBI immediately will get involved to the point we're trying to see whether or not it was attack or anything of a questionable issue. And if there is, the entire site is locked down because it then becomes a crime scene. And we were able to determine pretty quick, not me, but the officials, that this did not appear to be a situation, a terrorist attack or anything that was intentional, anything like that. So now we're left with, okay, on a clear day with 10 miles visibility, how do we have 2 aircraft occupying the same spot at the same time? And you've got the possibilities go from one end of the room to the other, and it's an investigation. It's going to take 8 months, 10 months, or a year for the National Transportation Safety Board to come up with their final findings on it as far as what the cause or contributing causes were. Many times there's more than one cause with an accident, so we'll have to wait and see. And even though it's kind of asinine to say, this is what happened, we can't do that. But, there are some things that are curious. And one of the things that we know is there's this corridor that is along the Potomac River that is place for the visual flights for helicopters, and it's a well-known corridor that is used often. We've got military airplanes, obviously, of all kinds, flying all over our nation's capital for all the obvious reasons. And most of the time, the helicopters in this particular corridor that's designated as a visual flight rule or a VFR area, it's 200 feet. So helicopters and what have you, 200 feet and under is where they're at. Now, when I heard the crash took place, one of the things that kind of caught my ear was the flight radar suggests that it happened at an altitude of 400 feet.
Right.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if I'm correct in my thinking, and at my age, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, I thought it was 200 feet. And if it is 200 feet there, why was that helicopter at higher altitude? So the investigation will look at that and a bunch of other things. The other thing that I found very concerning was that the air traffic control was in contact with, obviously, the arriving American Airlines regional jet. It was also in contact with military aircraft. And there was a point in time where air traffic control contacted the Blackbird and told the helicopter pilots, asked if they had visual confirmation as far as the location of the regional jet that was on final approach. It happened moments before impact when they collided. And I'm thinking, why are we asking at that moment a question that's going to generate an answer for us to then to give evasive instructions as far as a command on what to do? If time is of the essence, we're wasting a lot of time here. So I'm not suggesting it's air traffic control's fault. I'm just curious. And that's just a snippet that we heard. So there's going to be a lot of things before that we're not aware of. But it was curious to me that there wasn't more urgency in the communication. So we'll have to wait and see exactly, where things are at. And, the other thing is that as the air traffic control is talking to the military, they're on one frequency. And when they talk to the commercial pilots, they're on a different frequency. So the pilots don't really have the opportunity to overhear any of the conversations that might be going on that might actually pertain to the aircraft that they're on. So just a lot of questions here, and it's going to take a considerable amount of time for the answers to come forth. The NTSB is an all-star team. They are the reason it's been 16 years since our last accident involving a crash, because you have to go back to February of 2009, the Colgan air crash, the last time I had to go on the air and talk about this type of situation here in the United States. And it's something that, thankfully, it's a very, very rare type of thing. So we'll find out what happened. Was it a mechanical situation with one of the two aircraft that caused the crew to, not be able to do what they needed to do at a critical moment? Was one of the pilots impacted by a medical episode? There's a lot of things we don't know. So the answers will come forward. My biggest fear, and I hope I'm wrong, is that we find out it was something that was incredibly easy to prevent. And that would be absolutely tragic if that turns out to be the case.
Jay Ratliff, thank you very much. I appreciate your time on the James Show and your expertise.
Well, my pleasure.
Sad stuff. Sorry, I'm getting bummed out. They keep showing the figure skaters and the young people, and then Nancy Kerrigan had like a response because apparently the skating community, figure skating community is a pretty tight bunch, and some ladies from the Boston Skate Club, apparently she knew, and so now you got to see Nancy Kerrigan crying. This is terrible. 800-288-9227 if you have anything to add to this plane crash that happened in D.C., plane/helicopter crash in D.C. I am sort of calming down in the fact that I've had a few aviation experts say, no, this doesn't look deliberate, because look, that would be another terror attack right after the New Orleans one, right after, another in a long line. But I guess that would be worse than it just being human error. I don't know. 800-288-9227. Your thoughts are welcome on the James Show. Coming up, Trump has threatened to cancel the visas of students who participated in pro-Hamas protests. Some people think that's the right thing to do. Some people think that's the fascist thing to do. What do you think? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.